could be a little spooky. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Hey, we're live. Hey, everyone, welcome to SVT time. I forgot what episode we're on. I think this is episode 34. What kind of host am I?
Only 34?
Only 34.
But the last time I was on, was there a panel? Were there a bunch of us? Or
I think it was panel.
Yeah, so Hutch, you are this is the first SVT time you've actually gone solo, because usually we have you on with other guests and so anyways, everyone, welcome to SVT time. Dino Monoxylus here, Dom Liberati, our guest this week, and SVT time, like multi-time veteran. You've been on several times.
Ampeg veteran.
Yeah, exactly. Hutch, welcome. How are you, buddy? You're looking
great.
You're looking pretty healthy and svelte these days, man.
Considering we're coming out of the pandemic and on the road again. So, which takes some effort. Yeah.
You are on the road right now. You're touring with Bonnie, right?
Yes, this is not my house. This
Yeah.
is a hotel room. I want to make that clear. I would not be, as we were talking about
The headboard's
earlier.
kind of cool, though.
It's the headboard. It's a nice place. It's a Yale themed hotel.
You're in New Haven, right?
Yes, lots of pizza, lots of students, lots of curry, and yes, it's one of the
all good things.
So trying to stay away from pizza, I'm assuming.
Right now, yes. I've lost the COVID weight, so I'm trying to keep it off.
So, how did you lose the COVID weight, by the way?
By getting COVID, actually.
Oh no.
I mean, it's sort of a new weight loss program I've been working on here. And actually, Dino and I were talking about it, and I was ultra careful through the pandemic. I live on Maui. My wife works there, and we have a place in LA. And so I was sort of sneaking back and forth and doing a bit of studio work.
Yeah.
Socially distanced, masked. But my first gig in 2.5 years, the Billboard Women in Music Awards, supposedly safe. Everyone pretty much tested backstage. I ended up, it was a trio with Jackson Browne, Bonnie, and I. Bonnie won the Icon Award. And I went to this VIP reception. I think I was in contact with someone there. There were a lot of people unmasked in a room conversing loudly. So actually I could actually see droplets floating around the room. I ran backstage to the artist lounge, and I was only in the room for about 10 or 15 minutes, but it was long enough, I think, for me to contract it. Although I double vaxxed and boosted, it was a new variant. And I used the base amp 2 BA2 variant, and had to use that, Dom. And I think so. Anyway, about 58 hours after the event, I ended up waking up in the night feeling not great, and felt it in my lungs. Initially, the symptoms that I had were not common. I had basically sinus congestion and bronchial congestion, no fever, no headache, no sore throat. Usually starts that way with most people. Yeah. So I tested negative the next day, and actually a friend came over. We were both masked, but Sunday morning, or 4 or 5 days after the event, I woke up and tested positive. And was a bit freaked out because we were supposed to start. We have a new record coming out next week with Bonnie. We've been doing TV and pre-production and started the tour. And I was really afraid I was going to put all my friends and musical family out of work for a while. And luckily enough, that week for 7 days, 6-7 days, I tested positive. And the 3 days before we were supposed to start production rehearsals, I tested negative. The toughest thing about that was I didn't have any real recovery time. So I went from basically having COVID to 6-7 hour rehearsals in a venue with full production, full lights and sound.
Did you have brain fog too as a symptom?
I've always had brain fog. No. I didn't really. I think, there were certain things, I think, because of the long days and going through it. I mean, I eventually did get a bit of a sore throat and a headache, never had a high fever, but it did take a lot out of me. It was exhausting. I think a lot of it is when you do get it, especially if you're in a working situation as I was, I think I was afraid of the effect it would have on the organization and the band and, and the tour. And we've got 85 dates this year. Also, when you initially get it, I think you're not sure as to how it's going to progress. So therefore, there are a lot of questions in one's mind. As my doctors had told me, and they're fantastic. They said, well, this disease, there's an emotional factor to it. I mean, you really do not know, are you going to have long COVID? What are the symptoms going to be like? I've had friends. There's a neighbor, I think his name's John Harrell. He's a rock photographer. He was Aerosmith's tour photographer and worked with Zeppelin and all of these other people. A lot of the Guitar Center photos you see, maybe his. And there's a famous Steven Tyler shot of Steven like that with his mouth. That's a John shot. And he's a neighbor in LA. He got it and didn't realize he was diabetic and almost died. He was in the hospital for a while, infected his wife and daughter. So, I mean, I think if you get it, and once you know you have it, there are a lot of questions that come into mind. Yeah. And therefore, there's a lot of doubt. I mean, how is this going to work out? Am I really going to be on the road again? I mean, is this going to change my life? You don't know. Luckily enough for me, I got right into working, which was exhausting. So we did 2 to 3 weeks of production rehearsal. And then we did a couple of warm-up dates, one in Modesto and one in Reno, that were canceled dates from 2020. They were really makeup dates. And then we did some TV in LA, about 4 days of TV, Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen, Kelly Clarkson, which I think are yet to be aired. And then we took about 4 days off, and that was the first rest I'd had since I'd had COVID. Wow. And I flew to Rochester last week, and we played there, Syracuse, and Albany and Hampton Beach, where I saw you, Dino, the other night. And then last night in Burlington, which was a fantastic show. I mean, people are thrilled. As soon as you walk on stage, people are thrilled that you're there and that, you've made the effort to come out, and ovations are great when you walk on stage. It makes for a pretty damn good gig, and all the shows are sellouts. And you were there the other night with Rach, and Mike Gordon came, the bass player for Fish, who's a friend, last night. So we were able to visit. He was tested. His daughter, Tessa, was tested. And he had some great things to say about the band and myself as far as my playing, which is always a great thing to hear. I think no matter how long we've been doing this, if a respected peer gives you some great input as far as what you're playing and your tone and everything else, it's always a great thing, no matter how long you've been doing it.
You didn't know I was texting you through the whole show the other night. Every time you'd come out with a new bass, I would text you and say, "Dude, that bass." I've got
to go back and review this.
Yeah, you got to go back and read your text, because I was commenting on the Shorty Lakeland.
Well, I was going to say that's a new Hutchinson Lakeland that they're going to debut. So that was sort of the debut of it, actually.
Every time you'd come out, Rachel look at me, she'd be like, "Who the heck are you texting?" I was like, "I'm texting Hutch to tell him how great his bass sounds."
I'm gonna read those now. I'm gonna read them back to everyone here.
Did he actually type "Killa" though?
Killa? No, I said Killer. K-I-L-L-E-R. I don't type it. But I gotta say, and anybody that's watching this, man, and if you ever want like just to be schooled in groove and feel and tone, go check out Hutch and Ricky, because the two of you are like, I mean, I could sit there and just listen to you guys play all night long, and then Bonnie singing on top of it. It's just such a great experience. It really is.
And my friend Duke Levine in the band now is a big asset, and George Marinelli's joining. He's coming back. So those two guys are fantastic together.
Yeah, I mean the whole band is just it's just a lesson in how to play together as a band. It really is.
I've always thought the band was great, and she's always taken pride in the band that we have. But I actually think it's better. I think we've improved. I think we improved. I don't think the pandemic necessarily had anything to do with it, but maybe there's a certain sense of appreciation, being able to go back and do what we do after a couple of years of being prohibited from doing it. I mean, and I think that was beneficial unto itself. Also, I think not being able to do it for 2 years. I mean, we were doing things online. I did videos, I did tracks, I released records with people, but it was different. We couldn't go out and play for people. And that, I think now there's a whole new appreciation of that.
Have TV performances changed in their format since COVID and everything?
Well, testing is a big deal. And also, these things.
Yeah.
The masks. I mean, we're masked backstage if there are people who aren't in our organization, and there's always people from catering. There's always some local crew. I mean, they test everyone, but still, an antigen test it's not a deep test. So somebody can be infected and still test negative on an antigen. A PCR test, on the other hand, tests your mRNA. So it's a big deal. I mean, so I think testing is important on the road now. I mean, if you're working at the level that we are, we're traveling, we're going to different markets, we're going to different places that have different rates of vaccination and infection. Yeah. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because the tour can shut down. All those people who bought the tickets, the promoters, it's not just the band. It's not just the 5 people, 6 people on stage. It's the support personnel. It's hundreds of people. And if you consider the audience is thousands of people who are going to be, affected by one getting infected on the road. So,
are you pretty,
a lot of responsibility.
Like after shows, are you pretty bubbled up? Go like straight to your room, or is it?
Pretty much. We're on the bus, or maybe get on a flight if it's a long trip, or go to the hotel. And even then, and we stay masked in the hotel. I mean, it's not like we're isolated on a floor or whatever, although I think they're trying to keep us together to a certain extent. No eating indoors, which is tough in the Northeast. It wasn't too difficult in LA. I have friends who have restaurants in Studio City or wherever, and they have tables outside. It's common there, but in 30-degree weather, it doesn't really make it. So since we flew to New York, last night it was snowing in Burlington. I mean, I think, Dino, did you get any snow last night?
No, but Sunday it was off and on between rain and flurries here all day.
Right. Yeah. So there are these mandates, that we pretty much get food to go, take it back to your room.
Yeah. Well, Saturday, I mean, other than me seeing you on stage, we had zero contact before and after.
Right. You threw an Ampeg sweatshirt to our monitor, which I did get, and thank you, because I needed it for the last few days.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's funny because I walked up behind her. I was behind the barricade, and I said, "Hey, are you Mackenzie?" and she turned around. She looked. I says, "This is for Hutch." I said, "It's an Ampeg hoodie. Tell him this is from his Ampeg rep." And she kind of looked at me like, "You wouldn't happen to have another one of those, would you?" and I didn't. I was like,
"Well, if you can get me one, I'll get it to her."
Okay, all right, yeah, because I mean, it was cold and rainy, and it was probably, I would say it was probably in the high 30s, low 40s when you
Yeah,
guys stayed here.
I was thinking it was going to snow that night. Actually, I remember.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I mean, we're sequestered in our rooms a lot, or in our dressing rooms or on the bus. I mean, and I think because I just had it. I mean, right now, I feel, as my doctor said, I probably won't get it if I do again for at least a few months.
Yeah.
Some of the other guys who haven't had it, they're afraid. I mean, to go out and things. So I'm.
Now, you guys getting tested every day?
Or whatever. We test every day that we work.
Okay.
And because I just had it, I can only do the antigen test. I mean, if I take a PCR test now, because the virus lingers in your genes, so therefore it's in my DNA, and it will show up on a PCR test most likely for another couple of months. So therefore, while everyone else is doing these PCR tests, which are quite expensive, it's like $90 a test or something. I'm on the antigen test, which is basically what the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball would use. Okay. And so that tests, it's a surface test basically.
Unless you're Aaron Rodgers, there's a different test for that for him.
What's that?
Unless you're Aaron Rodgers, different test for him. I'm kidding.
Or Kyrie Irving. Yes, don't even.
There we go.
Yeah, I was so glad the Celtics won the other night. Oh my God, that was so great. Jason, I like especially just because Kyrie's on the Nets. So for me, that was like perfect.
So Dino mentioned you're using a bunch of different bases. How are you? Do you have anything like front of your rig that's kind of keeping all those levels of each base consistent, or?
I do actually. I have a Raven Labs little preamp that my late friend Steve Robbie, that founder of SWR, after he sold SWR, he had a company called Raven Labs, and I have two of them, and they're a great little three-way mixer preamp, individual volume for each channel. I don't see. I've never seen another one quite like it. He was an amazing guy. He that was really, I think, that was the inspiration for the 8x8 Ampeg 8x8 that I use. Was I was using his Henry VIIIs, and I went back to using SVT heads, and somebody this is when you guys were still in St. Louis, so somebody there was a guy with really long hair who was one of their big major techs for Ampeg. He was like a legendary cat back like in the 90s, maybe like 30 years ago, late 90s. And I remember, what's that?
No, I was going to say AR or engineering.
No, he was engineering. Yeah. He like refurbished some of my B-15s. And I think, Dino, you brought his name up to me once.
I think I'm trying to remember his name.
It was the Corn Bloom era. It's when they St. Louis Music owned the company.
Yep.
And anyway, I had this SWR Henry VIII. Steve made these basically miniature SVT cabs. So I used two 8x8 cabs with two 2x10s on top, which was my later Ampeg rig. But I switched over to SVT heads again from the SWR 900. And so one day I showed up. I was on the road with Boz Skaggs through a lot of the 90s. Ricky and I both were. Ricky was producing him, actually. And I showed up at the Greek Theater in LA, and next to my SWR cabs were two mini SVT 8x8 cabs that Ampeg had made me and shipped to me as a surprise.
That's awesome.
And I could A/B them. So I had 4 8x8 cabs up on stage, and was able to A/B them, and that's when I went back to using the Ampegs that I still have.
Yeah.
Which and so when we opened for the Stones in 2006, I remember Daryl Jones going, "Oh, these things are amazing." And I said, "Well, you use two 8x8s. You're moving a lot more air than an 8x10." Mm-hmm. And I plugged them into one SVT head. They just sounded huge. I remember Don Was walking in as well, going, it's the best sound. It's just so much low end for 8s. And I said, well, it's really about the air you're moving and the cabinet design. So Daryl, I think, has some that were made for him after he had heard mine on the 06 Stones tour. We did about 5 dates with Bonnie, I think, the final dates on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are a few floating around out there, but not many. I don't think they were ever part of the catalog.
They were never part of. Well, they were part of the catalog for a short time, but
really,
yeah, we did.
There was a 610 cab that's about the same size.
Yeah. No, we still have the 610. It might be. They may not have done the 8x8s, but I know we did 4x8s.
Yeah, there were no 8. I think Daryl and I have the only 8x8s. Yeah, and John McPhee from Fleetwood Mac has my old SWRs.
Well, we did some 8x8s for John McPhee too.
Oh, then that's because he bought my. After I got your cabs, we sold him my tech was Mark Skaggs. my tech was Mark Skaggs, who's Boz's brother, and he went to work for Fleetwood Mac. And John wanted some 8x8s, so he bought my old SWRs.
Okay,
through Mark. And so maybe later on he had some Ampeg ones made.
I think Chris had a couple made from him. Now
but I had the first one, so I know that.
You're still using one of those 8x8s with Bonnie.
Yes.
Tour, correct?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because everybody went, we're using in-ears, but I still need an amp. And she wanted a clean stage. So, but I need something behind me. I need to feel something behind me. Yeah. I can't do that solely. And I was talking to Mike Gordon about this because Fish, Grateful Dead offshoot, really, in a way. Yeah. And they didn't believe in in-ears. I mean, Trey and some of the other guys were like, oh no, it's unethical. The Dead would never do that, and Mike said, I'm sort of digging them, and he still has this huge Myers rig. And he was saying, yeah, I sort of like it. And our stage volume was able to come down. It's better for the front of the house guys. But I still need something behind me. And I think he has those, they call them, are they rumble pads or something, on the floor?
Yep.
And so he has, like he said, 4 of those linked together. So he's got like a 12x12 space up there or something.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Right.
I want to know in the comments of people, if you would play an 8x8, if Ampeg ever reissued one, give us a thumbs up.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I love the sound of an 8x8.
I love my 8x8s. And there's a few videos out there where I'm using the full Monty, sort of the 2 8x8s with the 2 2x10s on top, which really, really made it for me. I mean, it was truly a wall of sound, which is one of the reasons, that the guitar players didn't like it so much.
But you were never like really loud on stage.
No, I wasn't. It was full. And it really, to me, sounded like my tone on record, which was, really fantastic.
Yeah. And that's
I like the "I'll take a hoodie too" comment over here.
They're
really nice and they're very warm, so it's come in handy.
I tell people that all the time. It's like, it's not having an 8x10 on stage or a couple of 810s on stage isn't necessarily about volume.
No.
I used to joke with the keyboard player. We played in a wedding band together, and just as a joke for a wedding gig, I brought an SVT rig.
Yeah.
And he kind of here I am rolling in my SVT rig in a tuxedo, and he kind of looks at me and he's like, I says, I'm not going to be loud. I'm just going to be big.
Yeah.
And
right.
That's how
it's like a nice hug behind you.
Hugging you. Dom hit it right there. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a big
like a sonic hug. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sonic hug.
I love it. So
get back to your basses. You're running your basses into the Raven Labs. You're not using any kind of wireless with Bonnie. You're on a cable.
I went through the wireless thing years ago, and I just think it's lacking something. I still don't think. I don't know if the technology will ever be up to par to a good cable running through your system.
A little anemic for bass.
Yeah, completely. And I also I use a number of pedals too. I use an EQ pedal. I use a TC chorus. I've got a couple of choruses. I've got a number of MXR pedals up up there, like their ring modulator, all these different things. So, I mean, I still like using effects. I like using them sparingly, but I also have a clean signal and a dry signal. So I'll run a chorus, maybe sometimes through an entire tune, which I've done on a number of her records. I mean, especially in the early days.
Yeah.
So, I just love the texture.
Me too.
Yeah, I've been
Of course,
talking
like
to
the very, very mild slow phaser that just kind of like fattens
myself as well. Yeah. And I've got a Phase 100 MXR 100 up there that's just great with a lot of options. I've been talking to jam pedals too lately. Duke uses some of their stuff, and I know Tim LaFave once again and some other people I know have been using them. So I want to check some of their stuff out. But you were talking basses, that the Lakeland, the mini, the short scale, solid body. I really, really like it a lot. It just adds. I've always liked short scale basses. I was a big fan of Gil Starfires. I was a big fan of a lot of the Gibsons.
Yep.
But this bass, the Lakeland semi-hollow short scale was a great bass, which is sort of a hard bass to come by. I was talking to John Percello a couple of years ago, and he said, we should make you a short scale Lakeland and maybe a Hutch model. And I said, well, let's talk about it. And we did, and it's just a great little bass with a PJ pickup configuration. And
cool.
I really love playing it on stage. It's a whole new punch from my other instruments, the Fenders or whatever else. Yeah. On the record, I use an Asinonix bass, the Carrie Nordstrand bass, a fair amount, which are great little basses too, and it's a whole different animal, so to speak. No pun intended.
Yeah. Everybody says that with the push buttons, it does act differently with versus a standard.
It's a very tight sound, so it's really good for recording. It sits well with a kick drum. I think I used it on 3 or 4. I didn't have the Lakeland at the time, but I love Carrie's bass. He makes great pickups, and it sits really well with a drum track. I think it's one of those instruments. Great little instrument. And, go ahead.
Sorry. No. I was just gonna say, your the first song that you played the Lakeland Shorty on.
Yeah,
you had gone from your Lakeland PJ, which was standard, and then you went to the Shorty. And the first thing I noticed was how much more defined your tone was. Like all your fundamentals came through front of house a lot clearer than what you were getting from the PJ.
I think that's also string choice. I mean, round wounds on a maple neck PJ, it's going to be a different world from half rounds on the short scale PJ. Okay. That's going to be a whole nother can of worms there. And I have that. I still use a 64 jazz bass on a bunch of stuff, and that has round wounds as well. I on Bonnie's earlier records, I used a jazz bass a lot, and I think it's a different creature, once again from a precision. So it's like Love Letter and sort of stuff like that. So
that was a 64 jazz that you were playing.
Yeah, that's one of the first jazzes with no binding. It was the transition when they started using pearl dots as opposed to clay dots. So I think that bass is. I actually called it because the bass was sitting under my mother's bed in Somerville for years, and we were playing at Fenway Park, and before the gig I saw it and I said, God, this bass is just wasting away here. I've got to pull it out. And I used it on the gig that night. And I think Jimmy Johnson, who was playing with James Taylor, said, man, that bass is awesome. You should use that. And maybe Gad has said it too. And I brought it on the road, and it's been part of the road arsenal ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's an unbound neck with the pearl dots. It's a pretty cool bass.
Very cool.
It's probably early November '64.
Okay,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and we were talking. You said you really like the sound of the Renaissance bass.
Yes,
of the Rick Turner bass, who we of course just lost over the weekend. And talk about somebody who really changed the face of the instrument. Another Massachusetts guy. I didn't know he
was Mass either.
He's from Rockport. Yeah. And there was a place in Harvard Square when I was like nearly a preteen. It was called Briggs and Briggs Music. It's right across from Harvard Yard and right on Mass Ave, right before the bend.
You got to say Harvard Yard.
Harvard Yard.
Anyways, I'm sorry.
Anyway, but he worked in there when I used to go in because it was one of the few places that I could find world music or blues or whatever. That I could find all sorts of bizarre records in there. The Harvard Coop was a place, but that was somewhere I used to go in. And years ago, Rick goes, "You ever go into Briggs?" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" That was like I was like 12 years old going in looking for Howlin' Wolf records or and whatever. That was the place you could find them, you know. And so Rick Turner ended up getting a gig and playing with Ian and Sylvia, who were a huge folk act back then. Ian and Sylvia Tyson, and they Canadian Four Strong Winds, which Neil Young covered. I mean, a lot of big hit records. Someday Soon he wrote. And anyway, Rick went on the road with them, I think mid-60s, till he ended up in the Bay Area and founded Alembic in 1969 with Ron Wickersham, which was an interesting story because the low impedance pickups were really a matter of endurance. Rick said, you know, I'd wind these pickups till my arm was about to fall off. And like, whereas there were thousands of windings in the Fender and Gibson pickups of the day or whatever, everybody wanted a high impedance pickup. Rick kept winding at 15, 1400. Oh my God. And he'd stop and he ended up with these low impedance pickups. Ron Wickersham, the other half, the electronics half of Alembic, whereas Rick was a luthier and a pickup guy. Ron Wickersham said, God, these low impedance pickups are fantastic. They bring out bass fundamentals and other qualities of the instrument that the high impedance pickups don't. And he figured out a way to build a preamp that would basically give your signal the same strength as a high impedance pickup. So it really changed the face of the instrument. And that's around the time I was, and still am, but I was a huge Jack Cassidy fan, and you know, many other people, but I love Jack's tone. And that's around the time that Phil Lesh and Jack started using the modified Guild Starfires with those low impedance Dark Star, you know, whatever, Guild Hagstrom pickups. So it was an interesting time, but a great loss for all of us, and a great musician and a great friend to many musicians. And the Renaissance bass that you said you enjoyed, which I use with Bonnie on a number of songs, some of her biggest, I Can't Make You Love Me, Angel from Montgomery, a lot of that bass is an amazing little instrument. And I was introduced to it on a session with Ry Cooder back in the 90s. We were doing, I think, a film score, and Ry had this bass in the studio. And, you know, it's a sort of bizarre shape and all of that. And it was an early one, and Ry said, here, try this on this tune. I'm playing, and it's like, God, I love this bass. And I really couldn't afford, I thought I couldn't afford one. And years later, I was talking to Rick at one of Bonnie's gigs, and I said, you know that bass, Ry had one, I loved it. And he goes, oh, yeah, it's this and that. And a few months later, he calls me up. He said, I made you a bass. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I don't think I can afford it. But it's like, he said, just play it. I just want to hear you play it and enjoy the instrument. It's a tool. And, and so I still use it, and I use it more than ever. And it's such a beautiful instrument physically and sonically. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But anyway, great loss for all of us, because he really cared about the instrument, and he made great guitars, but I think, and he was a guitarist primarily and a ukulele player, but I think he had an effect on what we do as bassists in a big way.
Oh, sure.
Changed the instrument.
I remember talking to Rick like years after he had parted ways with Alembic, and at the time I was a huge Alembic fan. I put this out just in his honor today, but he was always like, even after when he parted ways with Alembic, he was always happy to talk about the Alembic days and his contribution to the brand. And, and at the time he was just putting out his Renaissance basses too. And correct me if I'm wrong, that bass does it have a special set of strings on it that?
They're Tomastic strings. They were actually, there's a picture on the Tomastic Acousticor string set of his bass. So they were specifically made to his specs for the instrument to bring out the acoustic tone of the instrument.
Yeah.
So, which I had noticed. Rick goes, "Hey, is my bass on the cover?" And I go, "Oh, okay, sure." And I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic." So it's a little bit of an homage there.
Cool.
So anyway, fantastic guy, and I'll truly miss him. And I was going to call him Monday. It was a very bizarre day.
Yeah. Well, after I had seen you on Saturday, and the bass, as far as a fretless goes, it's just even through front of house, it just sounded like it was the epitome of what a fretless electric bass guitar should sound like. Just a really mellow, beautiful swell. Every time you'd play a note, it would blossom, and then.
Well, I used on those songs. I used a Washburn AB40 Forever, which is what I used on the original recordings of "I Can't Make You Love Me" and some of Bonnie's better known tunes. The Rick's bass to me had the same quality, but with I don't know, some other sonic qualities that the Washburn didn't have, and sometimes the Washburn got a little buzzy for me, whereas Rick's bass really sometimes had this acoustic flavor that nothing else I've ever played really comes close to.
Yeah,
so, interesting. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Hey, John Button's here.
I was gonna say, John just checked in. I was gonna post his comment. I have no way to post it on the screen right now, but
we're here for tea time, but John and I have coffee time together now and then.
Nice.
Dom will have to join us someday.
Yeah.
Actually. We're gonna get a bunch of reps there, so it's like
love that.
We can have
we'll take tea time into restaurants and stuff.
That's an idea. That's
just let me know when you do it. Hopefully by that time I'll be allowed to travel out to the West Coast. I'm still barred from traveling.
Rachel doesn't allow him to travel.
No. Are you kidding? No, Rachel's the one that's like, it's been 2 years, hon.
I think Cynthia Keltner was doing that with Jim during the pandemic, and I remember a couple of friends. She doesn't let him out of the house. I'm going,
yeah. No.
And I was sneaking back to LA from Maui, as I said, to do a bit of work and just to check on my instruments in the house and certain things like that.
Yeah.
But as my doctor said, we really had no virus in Hawaii, so it was. She said, "How are you going to get it if there's none there? Nobody's going to have it on the plane, right?"
Yeah.
And the most difficult thing was you had to travel either initially through Honolulu or a secondary city in order to get to the outer islands in Hawaii.
Okay.
So they made it difficult for people to come in. They wanted to keep people out, to keep everyone safe.
Sure. Yeah.
Which was a great thing, which is even more ironic, the fact that I got it on my first gig on the mainland. It was like,
just waiting
perfect.
for you.
It was waiting for me.
Yeah.
At the Billboard Awards.
Yeah.
So while let's talk about basses, I just got a text saying Dave Rowe, the Nashville bassist.
Yeah, I love Dave Rowe. Another Hawaii guy.
Another Hawaii guy, exactly. I'm buying his 59 road worn, not an original 59.
Oh, I see.
He texted me saying it's on its way. So I got a Fender P bass coming.
Oh,
nice.
What color?
They're great basses.
It's the
Maple Neck Sunburst.
Yeah, no, maple neck, like a salmon pink or whatever they call it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. You go in that salmon pink, Dino? I didn't have you pegged for that.
I can see it.
Can I say? I do have that softer side of me. So
I'm not going anywhere near that. I'm sorry.
Right. Neither one of you. You're kind of like,
I'm glad I'm in a hotel room in New Haven.
Hey, I could be down to you in 2 hours. So
we'll have pizza later, actually. Hey, something else I wanted to bring up is, the world situation. I mean, we've just gone through the pandemic, and now we have war in Europe, and it's so tough. I was mentioning to Dino, the people at the inners I use are 64 audio. And my friend Roman, whose brothers run 64 and own the company and design, he has Schnobeltone, which is they make some great pedals that I use. And it's a couple of days before the invasion. I was talking to these guys, and I said, "Do you have family there still?" And then, "Yeah, we do, but they're in the West." And I was. So 2 days later, we just started rehearsals, and the invasion happens. I mean, it was sort of mind blowing. What's going on, and it's going to change. We were planning to go to Europe next year, but this is it's a whole new take on everything for everyone.
Really is.
I think 64 is actually donating a percentage of their revenue to different relief organizations over there, and trying to help people get settled and get out. It's so difficult, and something Bonnie talks about every night. I mean, it really affected her in a big way emotionally, I think. And that it affects everyone. It affects all of us, and will have lasting effects on everyone for some time. Never mind just gas prices, but emotionally, I think it takes a toll on everyone.
Well,
I think everyone was finally just like, okay, maybe we're out of this pandemic, and then, like you said, it's like shifting to next.
It's like, really?
Event.
You're going to do this now? I mean, it's like, and and also I pity, I have sympathy for a lot of the musicians in Russia who have opinions and write songs of dissent. It's just it's a tough time for so many people. And I think something that we all have to keep in mind, that we're really blessed to be able to hear. I mean, I feel that way now being on the road. It's an amazing thing to go back out there and see the looks on these people's faces when you show up and walk on stage. I mean, we basically long-standing ovations. I don't know, was that the case at Hampton Beach? I mean, I think it was. I think you just walk out and you're amazed. People are so thrilled and grateful that you're there, and that for at least 2 hours, they can forget about these other issues in their life.
And such a sense of unity there too with everybody.
Completely, and it's funny. Rochester, for instance, not a lot of masks in the audience. But last night in Burlington, Vermont, Bernieville, I mean, almost the entire audience was masked.
Was there a lot of masks?
Hampton Beach, there weren't many, right?
There, I could probably count on two hands how many masks I counted.
Yeah.
But,
it's interesting looking out on the crowd from the stage and seeing. I think Syracuse was about 50-50, more masks than Albany. I think. I'm curious to see what the rest of the tour is going to be like and how things progress. I mean, after this leg, we're pretty much New York, New England. Then I think the next leg, Lucinda Williams is opening a 6-week leg, 6 or 7 weeks. We start in Tulsa, and we basically go through the South and then up the East Coast through Boston again and New England. So, I mean, place to place, it varies drastically. People are dealing with this. And as I said, I just had it, so I mean, it's still there. I think if you're a musician and you're working, you have to be extra careful because, as I said, you can jeopardize everybody's livelihood and the pleasure that these audiences have in coming to see you perform, which is something that people need now. I mean, it's like we just went through the war and now we're sort of involved in another. And as in World War II or World War I or any of the flu epidemic of 1918, I think music and the arts had a lot to do with giving people a sanctuary mentally for a while.
Very much so.
And there's almost guaranteed like a renaissance after each of those periods. So it is
completely
interesting to see, how music will continue to unify and touch people after After even this next wave of war, hopefully it'll be quicker than we think.
I know a number of the songs on our new record, on Bonnie's new record, were written during the pandemic. And there's a song called "Living for the Ones Who Didn't Make It," and there's a couple of songs. There's a beautiful title song of the record that she wrote that deals with the pain of losing someone in your life, and I think people are relating to these songs when we play them live. I mean, you can see people emotionally drained and breaking into tears at certain points in these songs. And I've gotten some texts from people who are at shows and messages online that talking about their experiences during the pandemic and prior to that with loss. And I think a lot of people, even the last 2.5 years we had as musicians. I mean, friends like people I've known and worked with, like Willie Nelson, who's in his late 80s. I mean, who lives to be on the road for 2.5 years of his life, in his mid 80s, wasn't able to tour. These are people who live for it, and as a lot of us do. And I think it's been a very trying time for us all, as far as artists, musicians, and people in general.
Well, I had a few friends who came into LA. I mean, typical story of a musician coming from, like myself, either Midwest or East Coast or whatever, dreamer, going into LA, your early 20s, like, here we go. And then like you come in and it's like, okay, everything's shut down, city shut down, just sit and wait for 2 years, that's
exactly. And try to survive. I mean, I'm sort of, I've been doing this a long time, and I have sort of a revenue stream, whether I'm working or not, just from residuals and publishing or whatever else. But a lot of people don't have those options. And I think a lot of people in our business had a super difficult time. A lot of my friends, the environment in Hawaii, for instance, it's sort of club oriented and tourism oriented, and that went the way of the wind. I mean, I'm shocked that some of my musician friends are even still there, who don't work on a higher level, who work playing in clubs or happy hours or whatever. It was really difficult for people. And anyway.
Well, I will say this, that for the first time in a long time, being in the audience at Hampton, there were a lot of smiling people. I mean, everybody was smiling. There were a lot of dancing people. Like, everybody was, like you said, just the vibe you got from the audience was the same. It was like, in the past, you'd go to a show and you'd be like, oh, look at that guy over there. Look, And this time it's like, look at that guy over there. He's enjoying himself. He's having fun. He's everybody's just kind of cutting loose. And, So,
it's funny. I saw a number of people and they were really responding, I think, to the songs on an individual basis. I mean, there were a couple sort of dead center in front of Bonnie, a couple of rows back, maybe a group of 4 people, 2 couples. And they were really right there with her lyrically on every song. Those sad songs I was talking about, dealing with loss, personal loss during the pandemic or prior. I mean, they were in tears, but then they were up dancing for the other songs. And I thought they were on this ride with us. They were right there, and,
And she has that effect,
she does. Yeah.
She definitely has that effect where
she's singing better than ever. It's just amazing. I mean, it's really something else to watch.
Yep. And she's always complimenting you guys too. She's always giving you guys props, and it's just, like I said, it's just anybody that's watching, if you get a chance to go see Bonnie, by all means, please, go check it out. It's just great music and a lesson in groove.
Yeah, when do you guys make it out to the West Coast?
We'll be I think we start in the Bay Area and work our way through LA and San Diego. I think September probably.
Okay.
I'll be doing
make sure
that.
To check that out. I would love to see it.
Yeah, it's a pretty great tour, and the new record will be out next week. And
so
the first 2 singles are out now.
The new record's called Just Like That.
Correct.
Right now, you guys, the band that's on tour, you guys all recorded this record as you have previous records with Bonnie too, right?
Well, Ricky and I, and the new keyboardist Glenn Pot, who was playing with my Cooter for the last 4 or 5 years, and had a band called Olabelle. He was with Amy Helm, Levon's daughter. He was in Levon's band for a number of years, we met him through Mark Cohn. He was playing with him when Mark was opening for us, but he was a pretty much perfect fit. Of course, the late Mike Finnegan had been with us for almost a decade, and he passed in 2020 or 2021, and so anyway, Glenn came in. Ivan Neville's been off and on in the band for 25 years, since he's like my little brother. So when I joined in '84, he came in '80, maybe late '84, and was at the band till he joined Keith Richards' band in '87.
Okay.
The Winos, who are sort of having a bit of a resurgence right now.
Yeah.
So and of course Duke Levine wasn't on the record. It was Kenny Greenberg on the record, Nashville guitar player. So Kenny wasn't able to do it because of prior commitments, and Duke was kind enough to come do it with us. And Bonnie loves him, so it's perfect. And he's another Bostonian, so it's a good thing for me.
What's weird is
he's an old friend.
She introduced Duke from Boston, but she introduced you from Somerville.
Yeah, well, Duke's actually from Worcester, so and he lives in Malden. And I'm a son of Somerville, I guess. So I'm a son of David Square, so in Harvard Square.
In Harvard Square.
When you all cut the record, did you guys cut the record together mostly, or was it still kind of remote track?
Yeah, in the Bay Area, we went up to not far from her place and cut it there. And Ricky's in the Bay Area as well, so it made sense.
Oh yeah, yep.
And now George Marinelli Jr., our longtime guitar player, is also coming back. I think 2.5 years of being at home during the pandemic, it's like, oh, welcome back on the show. Now we have 2 guitar players, or as Bonnie said, 3 guitar players. So, we're going to start doing Leonard Skinner songs. No.
Oh gosh. When is George joining you guys?
George is joining us at Foxwoods in a few days in Connecticut. Okay. And then he will be playing with us in Portland, Maine. And then he's on more than 2/3 of these dates for the rest of the year, which we still have like 80 dates or something like that. Okay. So we'll be hitting just about everywhere, and hopefully overseas next year. We're looking at least Australia and New Zealand.
Yep.
Hawaii. And we'll see about Europe. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? Yeah. I think the war in the Ukraine, what the Russians are doing is affecting us all, and it's going to affect the economies there. It's in a big way. Which will affect people touring there. So I have friends who are over there now and just got back, but they don't quite tour on the level that we do. And I think big tours will be affected. Sure. Maybe not club dates, but big tours will definitely be affected by this.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're seeing the effects of it as an amp manufacturer, just being able to secure tubes. Yeah.
Oh, damn! I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all about tubes.
That's all about tubes.
You know me. I'm a tube guy. So.
Well, I was going to say, so you're still using 2 Pros.
Yeah.
You've always been a big fan of the 2 Pro. So
I've got 3 2 Pros out with me.
Yeah. So it's just like you say, on every level, it affects different aspects of every level around the world.
Completely. And I'm stunned as I was talking about my friends at 64 Audio and Schnobeltone who have family there. I mean, they were, he's just going to go in the Donbass region, and the West will never be affected, and our families are by Poland, and look what's going on now. I think the world is somewhat stunned, especially just post-pandemic as far as what's developed there.
Yeah.
And really, because of the insanity of one man.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are a lot of people in the Soviet Union, probably 40 to 50%, just like sort of our nation's polarized. It's the same there pretty much. And I think these people don't approve of it and are somewhat as stunned as we are by the developments.
Yeah.
And, but it is affecting us all, and it's going to affect touring and manufacture and whatever else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, just
and don't get COVID.
Don't get COVID. Yeah, that's we're all.
It's all work.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I want to bring up. This is kind of like a complete left turn, but you've been using SVT Suite quite a bit lately, haven't you?
Yes, and I love it actually.
Nice.
You know, I've used it on. I use an NS upright bass, and and at least live with Bonnie, and I've used it in the studio a bit. And during the pandemic, I acquired one over on Maui, and I put it in my studio. And you're familiar with Kachow, right? Kachow was the great Cuban bassist. And I studied with him, took a couple of lessons with him. I met him at the Grammys in the 90s through Andy Garcia, the actor, who had met him at a post-Grammy party. And Kachow, this big old Russian upright and a bizarre big old bass, and he brings me up on stage, and he sits me next to his SVT, and I'm thinking, God, he plays a double bass through an SVT. Awesome. This is the freaking coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And so during the pandemic, when I was using this NS, I was doing tracks for David Knopfler, Mark's brother, who's also a founder of Dire Straits and was on their first 4 records. And thought, it's sounding good, but I need something else. So I ran it through the SVT Suite. And he's like, that's the best sounding upright. And I'm thinking it was a natural upright, and it's really an electric upright bass, an EUB.
That's amazing.
So it was amazing to me, and I didn't tell him, and so I think I'm credited as playing a double bass on the record. It's actually an NS. But the SVT Suite really helped give it a warmth, and I was able to tweak the tone enough so that it really sounded more like a regular upright. It was very cool.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm using it on just about everything actually that I'll do remotely. Yeah,
cool. To get some of your presets.
What's that?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we need to do that.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, well, I think at some point we're talking about doing more presets with having more artist presets too.
Yeah, so, I think we talked about that initially too.
We got to capture your 8x8. That's the next step.
That'd be great. That would be wonderful.
That'd be cool too. Yeah.
I think I told Dino before, when Line 6, I worked with them when they were starting out, and now everybody's in bed together here, so to speak. And and I remember they borrowed a bunch of my Ampegs to my older B15s, my SB12. So a lot of the Line 6 model Ampegs were my amps, which I don't know even if they still use the same model. Yeah. So,
no, I mean, not in. I don't think in Helix, but because I think they redid everything for Helix. But
that's but a lot of the original and the original bass pod and all of that, they were my amps. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. Well, shuttling them up to Thousand Oaks or wherever they are out there.
Yeah. Well, they're
founder Marcus Ryle's original.
Oh, there you go.
Personal bass.
Wow.
I had a beta one. So I think it got ripped up. Somebody broke into my truck and stole a bag, and I think it was in there. But I still have one of those somewhere.
Yeah,
they're great.
So cool. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think Dino was going to get me an adapter for it, and I don't think we ever got that.
I can get you hoodies. I can't get you adapters.
Adapters for my Line 6 products. I need. This is what I need. This is what I need.
Actually, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. Can he use just a regular iSpot?
No, I think I think the older pods you need the the wall wart version of.
Yeah. Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go.
Now that I pulled that out, I'm like, I don't even know if I have one. I gotta go.
Right? Hey, you know what else?
In that gray base pod, that's definitely my my B12 and my.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Haji said he can hook you up in the comments.
Yeah, Haji can hook us up.
Haji, there's Haji. Hey, Haji, I see him down here. I think I can hook that up. That's perfect.
You know,
I'll be forever grateful.
Line 6, Hutch, you've been a fan of the DL4 delay pedal, correct?
Yes, big time. Yeah.
So they just came out with line 6, and I know this is SVT.
I don't even have one. How'd you get one?
Oh, look at this.
I got connections.
Oh man,
is this a new improved model or something?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
It's smaller for sure. It has a mic input now, I think, too, for like vocalists to play on a loop.
Fantastic.
And it has a mode now where you can.
Definitely.
Basically, there's like a deep edit where you're selecting the delays on the left. That turns into verbs too, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You can. There's more effects in it, and then like Don was saying, you do have the XLR out.
Okay, Dino, if you can't get me an adapter, then definitely need a new version of the DL4.
I shouldn't have even shown this. Uh-oh.
Yeah. No, I know.
Dom and I are both on you about this. So it's like, you're in trouble, man.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna be selling off stuff.
I think they should also do a stomp in the green DL4 color. That'd be kind of cool. Like
that would be cool, right? Yeah.
But, hey, question I get. Okay, the old, very old now, the old tube DI, right? Mm-hmm. The SVT tube DI. Did that ever? That's been talked about many times, but it's
our
never
most
come
requested. I think on Idea Scale, it's like literally our most requested like reissue product.
It is our most requested.
Yeah.
It's a little trick.
I love mine.
So the trick now is like we've been talking about it, talking about what it would take to redo that and everything, and now with the tube.
I was going to say,
it's getting really tricky. So
when they came out,
we have something in the works. That's all I can say.
When they came out with those, they gave me 4 of them, and they said, "Well, you work on all these sessions. Why don't you just give these to some of the studios?" And now I think, what was I thinking? It's like, because I know I gave one to Sound Factory. Yeah. I gave one to Ocean Way. My friend Johnny Lee Shell still has one, and he refers to it as mine. So I think that's okay. And then I kept 2, I think. And one of those was in the bag with my bass pod that got somebody smashed my window and took it out of my trunk.
Oh, gosh.
So now I'm down to 1 of those. So I want to be first on the list if they ever come back into play.
Do you know?
It's my favorite DI.
In SVT time.
Sweet.
It is.
You have a model of that.
Yeah, I remember that. About that. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So we at least got it in there.
I like the physical product sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If they give you 4 of these, that must have been like they must have had to send those on a pallet because these things are like. I want to say. It's like that's probably beefy. About.
I remember it was Ted Kornblum who gave them to me and said he was they were the Kornblum era still. So he was like, "Here, can you give these to some of the studios?"
Yeah. Well, Dom, you still have one of mine too, right?
I do. Our sound design team stole it off of me, but it's in the building somewhere.
I think they were only in production for 6 months or so, right? Not long, a year.
No, maybe a year. Yeah. And then they did the mic pre version that had the little knob.
Right. But those original ones were I know Pino. My buddy Pino Palladino loves his. A few other people I know swear by them, So, and a lot of engineers love them too. Whenever I bring one to a session, it's like people are like, "Wow, where'd you get this? This thing sounds amazing."
Well, it's one of those things that Ampeg did. It was never really advertised,
right?
Or publicized other than word of mouth. And it was such a short run of them. A lot of people didn't know about them.
I didn't even realize it was a short run. Yeah, like just because of the popularity and like the way that it's kind of revered now, I didn't know that was a short run. Product.
Completely. I mean, they were barely out there. That's why I thought even 6 or 8 months. I don't even think they were out there for a year. And
Well,
I think, and most everyone I know, now they're a fortune if you can find one. But back then, I mean, I don't know anyone who bought one. I think they were all comped, that pretty much.
In true Ted Kornblum fashion, he gave them all away.
Well, no comments.
That's.
No.
I remember. When Ted was head of artist relations for Ampeg and sitting down and like just looking at the spreadsheet of Ted's accounts, I was kind of like.
there was a version
when your dad owns the company, you have a certain amount of leeway.
Exactly. Was there a 1U version, a rack version, too?
No.
Okay.
No, not of the SVT DI.
I thought that was like kind of what the SVP was, but I guess if it was in that form, maybe a little smaller, or a rack, what would you use probably more?
I would still use the DI, the standard.
Yeah, I would, because it's more portable. You don't have to bring an entire rack or whatever. Yeah. I just think they just sound awesome, and they look great. And
and if you needed a weapon at any point, you got one.
Hey, that's right. I also still use the Octavert, whatever. I used that on the other night on what's the In Excess song we did, one Bonnie covered. That's one of your octave dividers. I don't think they made those for really long either.
That was very rare.
Yeah, that was really the blink of an eye. Yeah, and that's in my pedal board. Yeah, I'll send you a picture, Dom. But that thing sounds great, and it tracks perfectly. It's my favorite octave device for the bass.
We got to get one in and tear it apart and.
Thank you.
What the magic is?
Yeah, I'm not giving.
I'll take yours. Yeah, thanks. You got to serve the greater good.
Yeah. Why do I have a feeling that my DI is like in a million pieces up in engineering right now?
Yeah,
I'm never going to see it again.
Hey, I still have your Jeff Daniels bag, or that it's in.
That's right.
Jeff Daniels.
Right.
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels bag.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, Jeff Daniels.
Really?
The actor. Jeff sent me a bag.
What?
Oh, man.
So who's on NBC Evening News? What's his face? God, who's
David
the host?
New York?
No, that's ABC.
That's ABC.
Oh God, I'm blanking.
NBC Evening News.
He's a bass player.
Oh, is it Lester Holt?
Lester Holt. Did you know he's a bassist?
I did know he was a bass player.
During the pandemic, I thought I saw on Ampeg in the back. I know he had basses when he was broadcasting from home.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, I didn't see that. I knew
you gotta get him on here, Dino.
That's what I was going to say. That would be great. I think he'd appreciate it, actually.
Yeah.
Recognition of his work.
But he's got to talk in his broadcast voice the whole time.
Yeah.
Unlike us.
I want to tube you up.
Yeah. No, that's I didn't know he was a bass player. Gary Sinise is another.
Oh yeah,
bass player as
he has
well.
a band. Lester Holt is sort of way under the radar, I thought.
Yeah,
if it hadn't been for the pandemic, who would have known? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, he's broadcasting. He's looks like Dom with 4 more basses on the wall in back of him. I said to my wife, "Oh my God, Lester Holt's a bassist. This is amazing.
Yeah,
what
right?
This is great."
Right? Yeah, he's just doing the journalism thing as a backup gig.
Sometimes you gotta make some bread.
Yeah. So, well, listen, I think we covered a lot of territory here, man.
We did. We covered war and pestilence and direct boxes. Yes.
War and pestilence and direct
Jeff
box.
Daniels and Lester Holt. We got
and Jack Daniels.
And
yes.
Jack. The lesser known brother. Jack
this
Daniels.
is for Dino here, right here.
Hey, when you've known him as long as I you call him Jeff or John.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Please come back and visit us.
Are these comments going to be up afterwards so I can scroll through them and see what people really think?
This is probably going to be rebroadcast over the course of the week or next couple of weeks as well. So,
come see us play and buy our new record.
Absolutely, yeah.
Use Ampeg.
Dino, we got to get you to be like the TV show host and have like the record, like plop it up on the desk next time.
That would be
have the actual.
Only if Fletcher Holt's there.
Yeah.
Well, that I was thinking about that because we should advertise new releases.
Yeah.
That would be great. Actually,
do you know if that's going to be on vinyl?
Oh yeah, big time. She sells a lot of vinyl. She's big on the vinyl. Yeah.
Okay. I'll grab that on vinyl.
And there are lovely pictures of the band on the folder.
All right.
Oh, forget it.
I actually changed the color of my black leather jacket. I thought, huh?
No way.
Yes.
Subtle, but like
I said I would never buy a jacket that color. Oh, I want the biker look.
Just like you never thought I'd buy a pink P-Bass.
Yeah.
Oh God! From Dave Rowe.
From Dave Rowe, no less. Well,
it's funny. Real quick, one more story. P-Basses. So Dave Rowe has this. What was salmon pink? You said?
Yeah.
Is the bass? Yeah. Okay. So I was in Hawaii a number of years ago. My wife at the time, and she's an accountant now, but she was the accounts manager for a chain of music stores on Maui and Kauai called Bounty Music. And there's still one store on Maui. They are like the go-to music store there. They're I think an Ampeg dealer, a number of other brands. And so she knew a lot of the reps. And Pat Simmons, my neighbor, who's the leader of the Doobie Brothers, said, "Hey, I got this track I want you to play on." I didn't really have a P-Bass, and I wanted a P-Bass. So I go into Bounty, and there's a floral P-Bass. And it's like the transition style body. So it's sort of like a slab body with a couple of contours. Okay, but it's that blue flowered late 60s print with a maple neck, and I pick it up and I'm playing it and I'm going, God, this thing's great. And I said to the owner, I said, can I use this? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what do you want for this? And he said, oh man, it's been sitting here for 8 years, and I'll give me $425. I think that's our cost on the bass. And I said, really? I'll just buy it. So I bring it to Pat. And Pat, I play it on this Doobie Brothers track. And Pat goes, which is a great track called I Know We Won. Willie Nelson's on it as well. And I'm playing it, and it just sounds so great. And it's like, and another salesman at the shop said, yeah, it sat there for 8 years because it looks so fruity that none of the Hawaiian guys wanted to buy it. And I thought, oh my gosh. And it's sort of a cool bass. And now they're like, if you can find one, I think they were MIJ. They're a custom shop, and they only made them for a minute. And it's got the single pickup, the old.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And now we go here. Now if you can find one with the multicolored flowers on it. Now if you can find one, it's a few grand, So I did pretty well on it.
Yeah.
But I always feel like gifted to Pat at some point because he loves the bass, and it sort of sits in his studio. But it was funny because the dealer says, yeah, it's too fruity for the Hawaiians. They want
fruity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like anyway. So and
it's funny now. You go out there with a pink bass, you look macho as can be.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
How things change, right?
I'm gonna post a picture of my pink P-Bass.
I want to see it. I want to see it. I want evidence.
Hey, speaking of P-Basses, real quick, we also have another really famous. He's famous. He's famous in our circle. Mark Pacifica.
Mark Pacifica.
Mark, how are you, buddy? Another Ampeg guy. P-Bass.
Why does it feel like he's at the Hilton?
Because it's.
Because of the rooms?
Yeah, no, because we're all sitting around talking about gear. It's like
we should meet at a Hilton sometime. The Beverly Garland or something.
I'll bring the Beast.
Yeah, right. Right,
please.
32 by 10.
Well, I'm gonna go find a pizza here somewhere.
We'll get some pizza with George, and
that's tomorrow.
Oh, that's okay.
I said it's Wednesday. It must be Prince Spaghetti Day. George says it's pizza day from now on. So.
That's right. Hey, when are you home in Boston? When are we going to catch a Red Sox game?
June or August. It's actually funny because I have a couple of days off in June before we do Harbor Lights or whatever it's called now, the outdoor venue on Boston.
Yep.
But I'm in the bubble, so I don't know if they want, if by the middle of June I'm going to be able to go to a baseball game while I'm on the road. So I may have to make a trip in August. I figure, when I'm not on the middle of a tour leg, so I can go to a baseball game.
How do you like the fact that I just invited myself out to your baseball game?
You always do. I invite you to every game, Dino. Come on. You're my Red Sox buddy.
You do. And I'm so blessed for that. Thank you.
We're the only fully uniformed bassists at a Red Sox game, actually. We look like we're part of the team when we walk into the park. Luckily, we go on Ford Jersey Street. So bases low. Oh God, that's our new podcast. Yes,
and loaded in other ways too.
Yeah.
We only talk about baseball and music. Exactly.
And Jeff Daniels.
And Jack Daniels. Or Jeff Daniels.
Jack or Jeff. Yes.
We're gonna leave it at that. Exactly. Everybody, hey guys, I can't even talk right now.
Lester Holt, we're watching. Lester Holt.
Lester, if you're watching, we want you on SVT time. There you go. Everybody, thanks for joining in. This was actually episode 34. I did look it up.
Oh, nice.
Episode 35 in 2 weeks. Same time on Tuesday. We're going to have Andy Sashone from Billy Joel's band is going to be joining us as well. So be sure to check in on that. And man, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, play more bass, and we'll see y'all. Don't get COVID.
Especially if you're on the road. Dom, I'll see you. We'll get together for coffee. And Dino, I'll see you soon too.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, kids.
All right.